Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Welcome to our financial modeling TV or Excel TV. Today we'll look at the first standard that we use as financial modelers, either in building the model or in auditing somebody's model. My job particularly involves looking at quite a number of models developed by investors out there. So my job is very easy. I just get these models. Sometimes I reverse engineer. I start, as long as I know the inputs, I develop the model from the start and compare the results with what have been given. So the difference comes into, that is what now I use to check why are we getting these fundamental differences. But if I don't have time, I'll just look at their models, the models that have been given to me that are on my table or on my laptop or my desktop, and I'll start cracking them from the inputs, workings up to the outputs and the results or the presentation. But then you need to have a methodology that you're going to use for you to spot errors that would be very difficult to detect in a normal way. So there are certain errors that will be very difficult to detect. So you need to have a methodology, you need to have a standard that you use. If you're an engineer, for example, there will be standards such as ISO that you have to check and all that. If you're is it safety, health, and quality, whatever, there are certain standards that you have to actually check. If you're an accountant, you're actually looking at the financial reports. Obviously, there will be certain accounting standards that you have to look for. For example, if you're dealing with the leases, you have to actually check on IFRS. Those days, I think it used to be IFRS 17, but I think this time it's IFRS 16. If you're looking at property, plant, and equipment, you have to check on IFRS 16. So you are guided by certain standards, and those standards, they help you to check the compliance. So I'll introduce you to the first standards. The first is just an acronym of F as flexibility. The model has to be very flexible. A as appropriateness. It has to be, the model has to be appropriate. S stands for structured. The model needs to be structured, and in the way you design your workbook, it has to be very structured. Remember that knowing how to work in Excel or in spreadsheet, or knowing Excel functions, that is not modeling. Modeling is a science, modeling is a discipline. So you need to know how you structure a workbook. T stands for transparency. So your model has to be very transparent. It shouldn't be a lot of jargons, hiding this, that. No. Always when you develop a model, look at your model. Have in mind two types of users of your model. The audience. These two types of audiences would be, one, the one that will be using the model. Secondly, the one that will be working on the model in case it needs to be expanded, it needs to be modified, it needs to be worked on because it has developed errors. The same concept with vehicles, that there will be a mechanic, there will be this person who would actually use or drive the vehicle. So whenever you're developing a model, you're not developing it for your own usage. You'll be lucky if you'll be using the model that you have developed. But mostly, if you're in the position that I'm in, even at my small consultants firm at Roy Consult, we develop financial models for our clients. So I'll never use that model. So I have to develop it with the two objectives. One, to satisfy the one who would be working on the model and event that it goes bogus, who would want to expand it, who would want to modify it, and the person that will be using it. So meaning that the model has to be extremely transparent. You get it? Clear. Okay. So we look at the standard 3.040, which is on formula clarity. So the first standard within this or section or verse, which is first 3.040-01, the standard tells us not to write formulas with embedded constants. For example, I have a variable, maybe growth rate, that I want to use. Say, for example, I've computed CAGR, which is compounded annual growth rate, maybe for 3-4 years. And I want to use this rate to forecast into the future. Then what I do, I go into the formula where I also say the volume is 3,000. This is say in year one, in year zero. I want forecast 1. Then I do this. I say equals that times the CAGR 1.04. I've embedded a constant in the formula. And the standard says you don't need to do that unless where it is deliberate. This constant, is not going to change. Let's say, for example, the number of hours in a day. You know that's 24 hours. Or you don't want, you have put it there deliberately so that the users of this model, they are not supposed to tamper with it. But there should be a reason. There should be a reason why you should do that. So please try by all means just using these fast standards. So except when constants are universal, and I'll show you how we can use these standards to do the model. I have already done, this is a Lafarge model that I've done, just as an example to demonstrate how sometimes we do these things wrongly and why we should correct them. So I'm saying, except when constants are deliberately embedded to avoid their manipulation, you're actually doing it deliberately because you don't want anyone to manipulate that constant. And you don't expect the constant to change during the lifespan of that financial model. So embedded conventional information, for example, an inflation rate, is never a good idea at all to embed it. But you can embed, like I'd already given you an example, the number of hours in a day, the number of days in a year. You can do that. But again, Certain constants may be embedded as a clear design intent rather than presented in explicit input cells. For instance, the model's time frequency. You're looking at 6 months per period, may not be able to be flexed. Or you're actually looking at the quarter, you have modeled date or you're modeling date, and you're using the term sheets to model date. And the term sheet shows that you'll be making drawdowns every 3 months. Or there'll be loan amortization every 6 months. So you don't expect it to change. So you can leave it. So let's go to this worksheet. Let me check how we can do that. So going here. These are the actuals in terms of the tons of cement that were produced in 2015 up to 2018. Then you are trying to do the estimates from 2019 to 2023. But then you check here, you have multiplied by 3%, meaning the growth rate. Going to 2020, you have 1.04 to 2023. So it's growing in 2019 based on your analysis. It's going to grow by 3%, then going forward, it will grow by 4%. This is not fast compliant. Why? Because you have embedded a variable which can change. So the best thing you can do is to have it under assumptions. So we have these two numbers. So I'm saying the sales volume is expected to grow by 3% in 2019. Afterwards, it will grow by 4%. So in the assumption sheet, you are able to change these numbers. Other modelers have agreed that in the input color, you can have these numbers in blue. It's a matter of choice. I haven't seen it in the first standard anyway. So this is what we're supposed to do. This is how we're going to model it. We'll say, I'll delete this, then delete it first. I'll say, equals if, I'll open that. If this here equals to 2019, if it is true, pick 2018 volumes times I'll explain why I'm leaving that space. Open bracket 1 plus, I go to assumptions, I log it like this. Oh, sorry. Which is 4. Or else, give me G5 times 1 plus, here I should have left some space. There. Oh, okay, it's okay. And again, press on that. And then Control R. So if you check what is happening here, it is actually picking that 3%. So I can go to the formulas. I go to evaluate this formula. Evaluate is showing 2019 equals the assumption 2019, which is true. So if it is true, what do you give us? Multiply that 921 times 1 plus 3%. Otherwise, so that is what we are getting because the other side is giving you 0. But if I come here and I go to formulas, I go to evaluate formula, see? So it will show is false, meaning that it will just give an NA, then it will calculate the 4% the other side. Interesting. Okay. So you can see how this formula is. It is very transparent. Okay. What other thing do we have to look at? I've explained on this, on the first verse of our first standards, which is point 1, where we are saying except when constants are universal. In this case, if they are universal, it's okay. Like in this case, here, I'm trying to convert the tonnages to kgs, kilograms. So we know that for sure it is times 1,000. So C8, if I go this side, sorry, C8, it is 1,000. So I don't expect these costs to change. And I wouldn't want one to manipulate it. Remember that I'm building this model for two types of people. Those that will be my mechanics will be working on this model, modifying it in whichever way they want to modify it, and those that will be using it. So I don't want them to manipulate this part. So what do I do? Here, this is where now the standard allows you, this is intentional. Okay. Now, this is compliant. It's fast compliant. This is also fast. Obviously, it's an exception. There's a fast exception there. If you don't want it to be manipulated, you can just have it in there. It's okay. Or you can whatever, like what we have done is fine as well. So we are done with 3.04 dash 01.1 and 01.2. We are going to another standard. So this standard, and I already showed you what it is. This standard here is you as the spreadsheet designer or modeler, you are encouraged to include spaces between arguments and formulas so that it is very easy for the one who is auditing your model, who is using your model to be able to interpret the formulas that you have put there. And this is what the standard says. It says, to the surprise of many modelers, Excel does allow the use of spaces in formulas. So they make the formula clear, right, to read and only cause disruption in 3 places. So like in this case, if I have 3 and 4 here, I want to multiply, and 4 here, then I do like this, equals this space there, this gonna work. But if I do this here, I can there. So I leave some space before I put that equal sign. We'll have problems you've seen, because I left the space before the leading equal sign. Secondly, between a function name and the operating parameters. So if I want to do this, for example, I do this, I say sum, I leave some space here and do that, pick this, times, then I do this as well, sum, so these are exceptions, you can do that. Or I come here and say equals this is greater, or then I leave some space like that, or any of those signs. I do this to also not give me what I want. So I'll say no, I don't want to correct it. So that'll be a problem. So just in those 3 areas or scenarios that you're not going to use it. So if you checked, I was leaving, if you have seen, I was leaving spaces. If I wanted, I could have even left the space here. So here, so even there, where I am, here, I could do like this, leaving spaces. To refuse, like this. So the way it is there, it is not compliant to fast. It is even very difficult to read. So what the standard recommends is that you leave space just after the equal sign. You leave space here, you leave space there. Control. So your formula is smart and clearer to understand. So if you're happy with what you have seen and you'd want me to continue analyzing or showing you what the standards are, the first standards, each topic, maybe every day it will be an overstatement, but if I can be doing it every 2 days, just write in the comment box. I'll oblige and I'll be doing it for free. Please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube account. I'm saying our YouTube account because it is also yours. Let's try and grow the community where everyone makes this channel his or her own channel. And if you want to learn Excel in depth, financial modeling in depth, data analytics, dashboard reporting on how to create nice sets like charts, do not hesitate to, to call or to inbox. Our Financial Modeling Academy is one of the few academies, at least in the world, where we don't do pre-recorded. Yes, we can do a pre-recorded, but all classes are live so that you can ask the most difficult questions that you may be facing in your day-to-day work. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.